Welcome back,
How was lunch?
troublemakers. I tell
How was
you.
lunch?
Oh, I didn't eat. I had a couple of crackers, but lunch is after this one. So at 2:00 I'll have some lunch. How about you guys? Did you eat lunch?
No, not yet.
The leftover rice was great.
Always good. Well, we are, this is the Command 101 class. So we did the hard stuff earlier, and this one's going to be the easy one. However, I'm glad to have you guys here because we're going to go over, I'm going to do things a little bit differently today. We're going to go contact to commissions all the way through. So it's going to be a little bit of rapid fire, and I want you to get your notebooks out because I'm going to give you step-by-steps. I may not give you the actual numbers of the steps, but it's somewhere about 615 steps. So just get ready to write, and I think you'll be fine. It's not 615 steps. It's more like 608.
I wouldn't hope so.
All right, so let's get started.
I gotta go run and grab a better pen. This one.
Get yourself to make sure you get some ink. I'll wait. There we go. Okay.
Flow quickly.
So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. There you go. And we're still having that Facebook issue. For some reason, the Facebook KWCLM group is not broadcasting the live stream. However, my page is, and the YouTube page is still working. So we got the YouTube, we got Facebook for my page, and we've got the Zoom room. So if you're out there wandering around, come on into the Zoom room or my Facebook pages, and we've got you covered. All right. So like I said, we're going to go contact all the way through to commission. Now, there are some of the steps that I'm going to give you where I'm not going to complete every little minutia. I'm just going to tell you what needs to be done, and I'll leave it up to you to finish them out. However, I will cover all of the steps. It's some of the detail, the entry stuff I'm going to leave out in the interest of time. Okay, so here's how we do this. We need, I'll give you the big blocks. You got to have a contact. That's primary. Nothing happens without it. Then we're going to create an opportunity. So part 1, contacts. Part 2, opportunities. Part 3 is getting ready for documentation. Okay. So we created the opportunity, and now we're going to prepare the opportunity to go through the documentation process. Step 4 is going to be Docusign. Now, we did Docusign earlier today, but I'm going to give you one document start to finish that basically is going to be rinse and repeat for all documents. Then we're going to take the document or documents, and we're going to bring them back to command. So step 1, contact. Step 2, opportunity. Step 3, prepare the opportunity for documentation. Step 4, Docusign. Step 5, bring all of the documents back from Docusign into the opportunity. We'll call that compliance for all of the documents. Okay. And then step 6 is going to be offers, and step 7 is going to be commissions. So we're going to go through that entire process in 1 hour. All right. So there's going to be a complete path here for you where everything that's going to be needed, everything you need to be done is going to be in it. You guys ready for that?
Yep.
All right, here we go. So as I said, step 1, we're going to come into command and we're going to create a contact. Now, again, I'm in the interest of time, I'm not actually going to create a contact, but I am going to use one of my existing contacts in here, and I'll change it up a little bit. I'll do John Morgan as my primary contact here. There we go. So I've got a contact. Now, if I didn't have a contact, I would have hit create a new contact and gone through the entire steps of creating as much information about a contact as I possibly could. Let me just kind of go over a couple of key points here. Number 1, you must have a full name here. You can have a middle name, but the middle name does not get picked up by Docusign. Okay, so when you have a full name here, If you have a first name and last name, you're all set. If you put a third name in here, it's basically going to leave that middle name off, and it's just going to pull in the first name and last name. You can create a relationship to another contact. This would be an example of buyer 2. So I talked earlier about primary and secondary and all of that. If I create John Morgan, and John Morgan is going to be the primary on this contract, I can create a relationship here by adding another contact into the system, and then I can use that second contact as the second person on the contract. Now, it's not required. You do not have to create the relationship to make that happen. You can put any 2 people in your database on a single contract, but this just keeps them nice and close together. Number 3 in this here is you've got to have an email address, because that's how Docusign works. You're going to need a phone number. Okay. You're going to need this. Also, take the time. If this is a listing, I bet you dollars to donuts that you have an address, and that address can go in the about section. No, not in the about, in the additional information section under their addresses. And this is handy because now you know where they did live. If it's a listing, he's selling their house. And you can also update this with where they moved to, and then put them on a follow-up plan later on. So that information is primary. So name, spouse, if there's a spouse or any kind of partner, email, phone number, and address. Get those things in there. All right. The rest of this stuff is important, but it's something I'm not going to cover in this particular class. Now that we have that primary information, we can create the opportunity. Step 2. Now, see how easy step 1 was? Just create a contact. So aside from going through every single dialog box in that create contact dialog, we went through the primary ones. Step 1 is done and out of the way. Step 2 is from that contact. Right? What I mean by from is on the same page as where you edited that contact. If you haven't edited it, open up that contact. You're going to go over to the opportunities tab on the right-hand side in the activities section. So contact, then to the opportunities. And you're going to click on create opportunity from this dialog right here. I'll give you a little second to look at it here. Create opportunity. We click that button. Now I'm going to walk a little slower through this one. Number 1 in here is we have some critical information that we must enter. And then we have some optional information that you really should enter. So our market center is automatic unless you are a member of multiple market centers. So make sure you check that if you are a member of multiple market centers. If not, it should be good. If you are on a team, the team name will probably show here, and you should be good to go. In the case of a team, the team lead or the rainmaker on that team will show as the owner of the contract, and you will become the assignee. If you're a solo agent, none of that matters. You'll see your name under owner. Now, because we created the opportunity from the contact, the client name has been filled in with the contact where we are looking at right now, John Morgan. Now, if John Morgan and a co-seller are going to work on this opportunity together, remember I talked about primary and secondary. The client is the primary and the co-seller is the secondary. And you can pick the related contact if it exists from the co-seller dropdown here. Now, I'm not going to do that for this class here because I don't want to have to do 2 signatures when we go to the signing process. So I'm going to leave that off. Now, one of the things, yes, I just saw your hand there. Yeah.
Is this good for residential and commercial or just residential?
Great question. So in the opportunity type, we see listing, buyer, landlord, and tenant. So those 4 are the only types that we have. So if it's a listing and it's commercial, you're still going to need the name of the client and, if necessary, a co-seller. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this particular section does not distinguish between commercial or residential. The documentation process does, and we'll get to that in a moment. Okay.
What happens if it's a rental? Oh, that's tenant?
Yeah, under tenant is when you actually get to tenant, it becomes landlord or tenant.
So if you're putting a rental in here and it's Okay,
Yeah, who do you represent?
right.
Okay. All right. So like I said, I'm not going to do a co-seller on this one. So we'll stay with single seller, John Morgan. Now, remember I talked about the opportunity name earlier. The opportunity name is always the who, the what, and the where. So we have the who, it's automatic. We have the what, it's a listing. Now we need the where. The where is the property address. Okay. And this is required. All right. So I'll put an epping here. Okay. So this is exactly what every opportunity should look like. Take a good look at it. Who, what, and where. All right. Now, if it's a buying opportunity, you may not have the where when you're creating the opportunity. Stands to reason. It's a buying opportunity. I don't necessarily have a place yet. You can leave that blank until you do have a location, but you need to come back here and add the property address for that location. All right. Next up is, again, I'm skipping some of these things for the interest of time, but we do have an estimated close date and an estimated listing price. If you have that information, please put that in here. I'm going to put in, let's say we'll do $600,000 for the estimated listing price of this house on 123 Main Street. The commission rate is required. So you need to put the commission rate in here, and that you can't get out of this dialog box without it. Good enough. So we've got our opportunity. So once we click create, we now see the opportunity up here, and we see it listed right at the top of his list of opportunities that we've worked with this client.
Robert, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Remember, I can't seem to get my screen and your screen at the same time, so I could go back to do this while you're doing it on mine. But I remember when I was trying to change, because remember I had two opportunities under Dave, the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to change or put some information in regarding the commission and the sale price and so on, and it wouldn't let me either change it or add it if it's already.
I don't think that it was prohibiting you. I think you may have been trying to do it in the wrong place. Okay. So let me show you on the next screen what that looks like. So just to recap, we did 2 steps so far. And what I mean by 2 steps is we created or used the contact, then we created the opportunity. The opportunity has already been created. When we finish that create opportunity dialog box, there it is. Everything that we do now in the opportunity is prep work. We did not have the opportunity, play on words. We did not have the opportunity when we were creating the opportunity to edit all of the things in an opportunity. In order to edit everything about an opportunity, we have to open the opportunity. So I'll click on the opportunity from within the contact, and it takes me to the master dashboard for that opportunity. Now, right off the bat, Wednesday, to answer your question, in order to change any of this information, there's a little edit icon here, and that information includes the commission rate and the value of the home. So when we click on the edit button, we're talking about editing all of the general information by that little pencil. So here we get the opportunity to change the name of the opportunity. That's going to bite me in the ass. Notice that we cannot change the market center. Can't change the team if there was one. We can add custom tags. We cannot change the owner. In this case, we can change the contact if we had put a wrong contact in here. But honestly, if you've gotten to this point, you're better off to toss it out and start again with the correct contact. Okay. If you're trying to change a contact after an opportunity is made, it's the wrong place to do it. You can add a co-seller for that contact if the primary is correct. That's fine. Then we have the phase and stage here. All right. And down at the bottom, at the very bottom, is our commission rate. So if we needed to edit the commission rate to 4%, we can edit it to 4%. If we needed to change the listing price to 500, we can do that as well. Okay.
So that's your agent, you as the agent, your commission, not the total commission for the project.
That is correct. This, if you think about it, it's literally what it says. The opportunity is the listing side of the deal for 123 Main Street, of which you are the owner of that side of the deal. Okay. So that's a really good point. A lot of people ask me, should I put the commission rate for both sides? It's like, well, Keller Williams isn't writing a check for both sides. So Keller Williams is writing you a check for your side of the deal. Okay. All right. So the rest of this information in here, while very valuable, is not required yet. I will point out.
I
Yeah.
just had a question about that too. So estimated closed date.
Yep. Read that as
Which
estimated closing. When are we going to
Okay.
close, do we think?
Okay.
Okay. So now that
Alright.
you've brought that up, let's walk this real quickly. Time frame. Depending on when you create this opportunity, because remember, opportunities can be created while they're little tiny just thoughts in somebody's head. They're nothing real. So that could be, yeah, we're looking at 12 months out. So you're creating it to nurture it. Now, on the close date, that's getting a little tighter. That's getting a little bit, there's a little more activity, right? So the close date, you could come in here and say, well, we're planning on closing the 4th of February. All right. For the appointment scheduled, which kind of backs up against the closing date, what you want to see when you read this is, what is the date that you scheduled an appointment to meet with the client? Not the date of the appointment, but the date that you scheduled the
Yeah.
appointment. So if I'm meeting with them on Friday the 7th, actually we're coming up here. Say I'm going to meet them on the 17th or the 21st, but I scheduled the meeting today, which is the 18th. This is the date I scheduled the meeting. This is the meeting date.
What happens when you have more than one appointment date?
There's only one required. This is all we need.
Okay.
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 Now, if you met with them on the 21st and they signed with you on the 21st, put the 21st here. If they waited the weekend and they called you on Monday and signed on Monday, then put Monday in. Now, the date of the contract refers to the date that the house went under contract. This is the agreement. You could read this as the date that you went under contract as their agent. Okay. This is the date that the house goes under contract. So if we signed on the 24th and then we had an open house on the 29th and we put the house under contract on the 31st, this would be the 31st of January for the contract date. Now, the closing date is literally the closing date for the transaction. And as I mentioned, my estimated closing date was the 4th of February, but it turns out that it's going to actually be the 25th of February. Okay. Now, you do not, you take a note here that you do not need these fields to be filled in. They are optional, but they will track information about your opportunity in a bigger picture. It's optional here. It was something where you can do it later. Now, having said that, this is optional right here, but it is not optional when we do the commissions. When you fill out the commissions tab, you will need the date that the house went under contract, and you will need the closing date. And if you don't fill those out here, you will fill them out in the commission area. If you fill them out here, this will transfer to the commission area where you can adjust it if it changed.
And that this can apply to if you're the buyer's agent as well.
Yes, either side, any side of the deal.
I mean, obviously the listing price, I mean, say you don't have, in my case, of this one deal I'm working on does have, we have a property, but it may not. You might be working with them for a while without anything.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be able to fill out commission rate or listing price.
Absolutely. I guess when it comes down to it, when you have the data, that's when you put it in. Okay. So I'm going to leave the close date off of this and I'll show you us putting the close date in. So I'll leave the contract date saying that this is the date that the house went under contract for sale. All right. But this is actually a lie because I haven't done any paperwork yet, right? Because I'm adding this information now, I'm literally cart before the horse because there's no possible way that I would have a contract date if I had no paperwork. There's just no way. So with that knowledge, that's why these are optional here, because you can always come back and keep this up to date. All right. All right, so I'll save that in here. And now that information, as you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner of my transaction, all of those dates, all of that stuff has been added here. So I have it in there, albeit a little premature for the reality of the situation. Now, in the case of a listing, so now, by the way, I closed the edit box for the details editing. And now I'm looking back at the main dashboard for the opportunity. On
Rob,
the
I'm
main,
sorry, one more time.
Sure.
Contract date when the contract is signed. We're talking about the purchase and sales or the final closing contract?
well, the closing contract's on the closing date, right?
Right. Okay, so you don't have to add that. So that
No.
would be the purchase and sales.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
got it. That's what I put down. Thank you.
All right. So let's review the top part of this opportunity once again. So we did the editing of the general information, what we had, albeit I went a little too far. We have a name of the opportunity at the top, which is down here, and which again, we can edit with a pencil. We have the person, John Morgan. When we click on his name, we could go back to John in the contacts. What you'll want to do is make sure that the phone number and the email are showing here before you go any further. We're not on the document stage yet because we're still making sure that the opportunity is prepared for documentation. And what we're missing hugely is an address. Now, while we have the address in the name of the opportunity, that's not the property address as far as the opportunity is concerned. The opportunity needs to see the listing if it's a listing or the buying address if it's a buying. So to get to those two values, if you have, here's a scenario. You just signed an agreement with this person and you want to get that data into command. But the house itself, while you have an agreement to list their home for them, is not in the MLS because you just last night signed the paperwork and you're going to put it in the MLS today. In order to put it in the MLS, you don't need command to do that. Command does not get involved with the MLS. Command reads from the MLS. So if you click this button right now, select from listings, the property will need to be in the MLS to find it. So I'm going to choose all listings here, and I'm going to say 123 Main Street in Epping and search for it. In order to get this select button, the property needs to be in the MLS. But if it's not, and you click in here, you may see an old listing from an old date. Don't use it. It's not your listing. So what do we do to get the address in here if it's not in the MLS yet? That's where the property box over here comes in. The property box has nothing to do with the MLS. When you click the edit there and you search for 123 Main Street and you find Epping, it will pull in the geo address. Basically, it's a Google Streets address, okay? So I'll click save, and now look at this. The property address is in there, and it fills in the spot for where the listing is because it's going to be a listing. But this button does not display the listing information. No picture, no pricing, nothing. This is just populating the address temporarily, which means if this was a listing opportunity where you needed all this information for the documentation process, which you do, then you can use the property address to get the paperwork signed. And then once the property is in the MLS, you come back to this screen and you click on the edit button, or you click the listing button and you click either edit or remove. I'll click edit, and it brings back up that MLS box, which you will now see when you search for the property, your MLS listing, at which point you click select. And now look what happened. The listing is there. The property is the same, but when you click on the listing, you got a picture of the house and you get the pricing information because this is actually pulling from the MLS. Now that means that the MLS data is ready to go to the documentation process. Cart before the horse. What happens first? Chicken before the egg. If you don't have an MLS, you can still sign paperwork, okay, using the temporary address. Once you get the MLS, Jesus, once you get that, you want to come back here and change this to include the MLS because there's additional information that's not originally there. So make sure you come back, okay? So now that we've got the details, we are prepared for the documentation process. That was step 3, was to clean up this page to get it as good as we can. It will never be perfect until the end of the deal. That's when the last numbers get shoved in here. Now this thing is ready for us to do documentation. So we click on Documents. And on the Documents tab is where we begin the transaction process. Now, on this page, there's 2 sections we need to worry about, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. The left-hand side is going to allow us to pull a document checklist that's going to show us, in some case, sample documents and required documents and conditional documents for each type of transaction. So when we talked about whether it was a construction or commercial, there is a commercial checklist. So we could pick that one if this property was commercial. We also have new construction, and we now have Vermont. Of course, we have Mass, Maine, and New Hampshire. Notice, though, that all of these say listing. That's because we defined this transaction as a listing transaction. If we had defined it as a buying transaction, all of these checklists would show buying. You can't change a transaction type once you've created it. So if you make a mistake on this thing and you're like, oh no, it's not a listing, it's a buy, you have to throw this away. There's just no way around it. You can't swap them out. So when you click on your checklist, you should be able to say, okay, yep, it is a New Hampshire listing checklist, a property in New Hampshire. Boom, click it. What you get is a full page of stuff. On the left-hand side, we're going to call these folders. There are 3 folders: documents for the listed folder, documents for under contract, and documents for closed. It starts off with telling you these are the documents you need for listing this transaction. On the right-hand side, when we have the listed folder selected, all of the required documents, all of the conditional documents, and all of the optional documents are listed. None of these are the real documents. These are placeholders so that when you get a signed copy of the brokerage relationship form, you know where to put it. When you get a listing agreement, you know where to put it. These are not real. None of this stuff is actually here. This is just where you put, these are the places in the file folder to put them. Anything that says DS means that this document, by default, when you create your Docusign room, it's already going to be there. So you don't have to go fishing for it. So all of these green documents, anything that's green is going to load up automatically into Docusign, so you don't have to do it. Anything that's not green generally means it's not in Docusign. You got to go get it. The current deed, it's not going to be in Docusign. You got to go get it, scan it, and put it into Docusign. And then from Docusign, you can bring it here. So everything that's on this list, you got to go through and say, yep, I need that, I need that, I need that. There's the property card we talked about this Wednesday where, we have multiples. So you'll need to go get these things and bring them in. Okay. So now each of these folders has a different set of documents that are required and conditional. If it's a conditional document, it tells you what those documents, what the conditions are where you would need those documents. The best example is under listed here when we come down to MLS listing sheet with listing, agent name and commission amounts, condition if listed in the MLS. So it tells you. If you have a question though, you can always hit the add comment button and use the @ symbol down here and ask either Jason Huell or you can ask Colin D'Agostino a question. And they read these because this is how you communicate with them in the transaction. Once again, add comment, use the @ symbol, and find the person that you want to talk to. They will find that and they will read it and they will respond to you. They are very good about getting responses. Okay. Questions about any of those things, Use the add comment. It's the fastest way to get your questions answered. Okay, now the checklist is here. Now all we need to do is start to get things signed. So we did step 3. We prepared the opportunity for the documentation process. This is part 1 of the documentation process, getting the right checklist and understanding what we need for the transaction to be completed. Remember, compliance is not going to let you off the hook on any of those requireds. And if anything's wrong, you're going to have to redo it. So attend the brokerage classes, attend the contract classes, ask the brokers on Friday afternoon, ask the broker on Monday afternoon at 1, back to basics on Friday afternoon. You have no excuses on not reaching out to our brokers here. Jason and of course Jennifer, they are here exactly for that reason. So they will answer your questions. Now that we're ready to start a transaction in Docusign, then all we do is come over here to start a transaction. And we click Docusign. Now on my screen, you see both Docusign and Dot Loop. You should really focus on one or the other. I don't care which one. We focus on Docusign here at the Market Center, so we're going to be using that. So let me pause here and say this again slowly. To create a transaction in Docusign, you get the information ready in command. You go to the Documents tab, pull your checklist first, because that determines all of those green documents that are going to automatically load into Docusign. If you didn't have a checklist pulled and this area was blank and you hit start a transaction, none of the required documents are going to load into Docusign and you're going to have to get them manually. You don't want to do that. So prepare this area, then click start a transaction and choose Docusign or .loop. So it'll load up. It will open Docusign. If you signed in already today, like I have, it didn't ask me any credentials. It just went, boop, I'm here because I've been in this thing all day. But if you get sign in request, just sign in. What it does is it dumps you directly into the brand new room that is just for this transaction. The who up here at the top, the what and the where are already done for you. All of the information about John Morgan is on the Details tab. So if I click on the Details tab of the document room, here's John Morgan's information, complete with emails. Here's the information about the house, the opportunity. And guess what? The MLS is in here as well, including the address, all of the book information, the post, everything. All of the MLS data is in here. That's what we did when we chose the MLS listing for this thing, okay? So it's all filled out, which means that any documents that are added to this room, they're going to look here, and if that information is required on the document, it's going to be there for us. Seller 1 is the role filled by John Morgan. John Morgan, using pre-tagged roles, has been tagged as Seller 1, which means that when we go to sign this with the envelopes and we use pre-tagged roles, it's going to say, who's Seller 1? John Morgan. Great. I'll put everything together for you on the document so you have it together. Now, we go over to the Documents tab after we've verified everything on the Details tab. Here's all of those documents I told you we're going to preload, and they're all blue, which means they're forms. Form, which means that we may need to go through each form in this window and fill out additional information as required prior to sending it to them. So let's take the property disclosure. How much information do I, as the agent, need to fill out on this? Not much, frankly. This information is mostly going to be filled out by the Seller 1 in this case. In my transaction, I only have one person, so I'm keeping it simple. So I look at this and I want to make sure that John's name is here. I see all of that filled out good. I'll come down through and make sure that there's nothing else on here that shouldn't be there. All of the places where he's supposed to fill it out look good. I don't need to touch that one. I'll close it. Next up, notice of consent. I think this one is pretty simple. I don't think I signed this, but I'm going to double check, right? Because I want to know if the agent needs to do anything here. And it looks like the agent does not, but it looks like the state didn't get populated into that. So I'm sorry, that's not the state field. State field's over here. That was my bad. So it looks like the people who are signing this is just basically parties 1 and 2. So that one don't need to worry about either. Wire fraud, same thing. Brokerage relationship form. I only need to sign the brokerage relationship form, and I only need to initial it if they choose not to sign it. And that's that section down here, licensee initials if they choose to decline. So
Bob, don't you have to do this form before you do any of this?
I'm not doing them in order.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing them in order.
When you make your first contact with the customer, this has to be filled out.
Don't take any of my guidance in terms of legal. I just went left to right. So you're absolutely right. This is document 1. So this is definitely 1. But remember, they all got populated in there. So all I'm doing is going through them. So, but you're absolutely correct. So here is that brokerage relationship form. And this one here is document 1. So I would probably take this right away and get it out the door. So as I go through the rest of these, again, information that I need to fill out if necessary, or information that I'm going to have my clients fill out when they get the documents. So now that we have, and to Stephen's point here, when we are ready and we have done what we need to do for each document that we're going to send, we can send 1 or more depending on what we need to send. So in this case, let's take the brokerage relationship form, and we can either right click it and create an envelope, which is going to put this single document into an envelope, or we can put check boxes. I opened it instead of doing that, so let me close it here. Or we can put check boxes in any of the documents upper windows here, and we can say, well, let's create an envelope with 3 documents. Now I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to do 1 document in the interest of time. And we're actually going to go through the signing process. So document number 1, I can click up here to create an envelope on the toolbar that pops up, or I can still right click this and choose create envelope. So I choose create envelope. Okay. And the envelope gets created. Of course, the document has been just dropped in here. This is the brokerage relationship form. Brokerage relationship form. And again, I put this name in here for me so that I know what's in this envelope. I verify the brokerage relationship form is here in the add recipients, because I know that John Morgan is on the details page as seller 1. I can use pre-tagged roles because this is a Docusign form, not a PDF. So I can click pre-tagged roles, and I know that I also need to sign this. So I'm going to select myself as the listing agent. And for seller 1, I'm going to choose John Morgan. All right. Now I don't have a seller 2, so I don't need to worry about that. And I'll click add selected. It takes a couple of seconds for the names to load up here. And you'll notice that we talked about this earlier about the number, the order. Right now, they both have a number 1 next to them. There's no relevance here as to when these people get the document.
So Bob.
Yeah.
Bob, remember we talked on the last thing about envelopes. Why wouldn't you put the opportunity name there? Because you could sequence the documents that go into that envelope and keep sending it back and forth to the seller to get signatures and fill it out.
You can name this thing anything you want.
No, but could you do that though? Could you start the disclosure agreement, then send them another agreement under that envelope, same envelope?
Yeah. When you stepped aside to take the call, that we were talking about that you could add multiple documents to a single envelope.
Okay.
You can absolutely do that. So if I clicked room docs here, I can go and get the notice of consent and the wire fraud, and I can have as many documents in here that I need in terms of the packaging. And I can also take this and order how they see them. So number 1, brokerage, number 2, wire fraud, and number 3, consent. Or if I wanted to do it this way, I could swap them out. So I could put them in the order that I want them to get them. In this case, again, I'm just going to do the 1. So we have our brokerage relationship form. And in terms of who gets this when, right now, both of them get them simultaneously. Both of them, one of them is me. And I'm going to show you a really cool trick about the signing process for you, the agent, when you need to sign documents. Here's basically the hint. When you create an envelope that you're going to be part of the signing process, put yourself in here at the same level as the person who is signing next. So in this case, both of you are number one. What that means in the simplest of terms is that when I send this envelope out, I'm going to immediately right here in Docusign be able to sign that document without having to go to my email, without having to wait. And I can sign it for all intents and purposes before John even sees it, because he's not going to be sitting in his email waiting for this to come through. So I can sign this and have it done before he ever sees it. But we're still sending it at the same time. Okay. All right. So now that both of these people are in here,
you couldn't sign it first and then send it to him as one?
You don't need to, because of what I'm just describing here. We are effectively going to sign it first. However, if you wanted to do that, you absolutely could. And all you have to do is put a 2 for John Morgan, and that will force you to get the signature first. And then when John receives this, it's a guarantee that he's going to see your signature on it.
Right.
Okay. If you put them,
my biggest concern is, how do I know this gets signed and how does it get back into my package,
Well, you should be receiving notifications for every signature process that goes through Docusign sending you an email. As a matter of fact, in my emails, which is off screen here, you can't see it, just creating this room has already started an email chain for this document process in Docusign and my email. Okay. So we're going to do a simultaneous here so that I don't have to worry about one signing before the other. Now, remember, you have a message down here. I recommend that you do not leave this as please Docusign. This is for your people to read. This is how you're going to speak to them in their email. When I bought my house, the agent who was not a KW agent, every email that I received from her for Docusign said, please Docusign. So my inbox had 15 please Docusigns, and I had to go through each one because I didn't know what documents were which in any of those 15 emails. It kind of pissed me off because I had to keep on opening my emails. So I recommend now, having been on the losing end of that deal, I recommend please sign this brokerage relationship disclosure form. Sincerely, Robert. And I put that in the subject line, as well as putting something warm and fuzzy in the message. Because as we know, most emails, we can see the subject line on a lot of our different devices, but you have to open the email to see what the body of the message is. So I usually put something nice like that in there and say, listen, now you know what it is. So if you're looking at 6 of them, you find the brokerage relationship form. And then put a warm fuzzy in here, something nice. It was great talking with you today. I can't wait to do this with you, whatever. So now that we have that done, we can go and get the document out. So where are we at? We had a contact. We created an opportunity. In the opportunity, we edited all the details. We went to the document page of the opportunity and got it prepped up for this moment by adding everything that we had. We created the Docusign room. And in this case, we're using the preloaded automatic required documents for this process. We created our first envelope. We added a document for that envelope, and we're about to send it out. So I click next. Now, in this page, all I need to do, if I've done everything right, is verify what I expect. And what I expect is that Robert Vincent and John Morgan are going to be the 2 people signing this. Robert Vincent was added first to the envelope. This has nothing to do with the opportunity. Robert was added to the envelope first, so he's the top yellow. His role is as the licensed agent. So there he is. So John is first on the signature process, but Robert is down here. He just happens to be first in the room, or the envelope. So all I'm doing is verifying. This optional area is if John declines to sign, which I can sign later if I need to, but I can sign this portion now. All I have to do is know this. Both people are listed as number 1 in the send order. So that means it's going to go out simultaneously to both. So in my screen here on my email client, which is right below what you can see, I'm going to get an email and John Morgan is going to get an email, and they're both going to get them pretty much simultaneously. Since I'm sitting here, I'll see John's, but as we alluded to earlier, I'm going to have an opportunity to sign this before John ever sees it. And here's how it works. I'm going to hit send. That document goes out. My screen takes me right back to the envelopes area, and it says right there in big letters, needs my signature. I'm looking down on my screen and John Morgan's email has not lit up yet. So I'm seeing the signature process for me before John sees that he's even gotten an email. And it's not because it's delaying it. It's just because this is instantaneous because I'm inside Docusign. So now here's the brokerage relationship form. There's another reason why I label the envelopes, so I know the name of the envelope. Here is the recipients, the listing agent and the seller. Both of them need to sign. And because I am one of the signers, I get the blue button, sign. Now, if I'd gone to my email, I could have opened up my email and done click and brought me right to this page. But because I'm the agent in Docusign, I saved all of that step. So I click continue, start my signature process, sign. I do not need to sign this unless he comes back and says he's not going to. So that's my whole signature process. That's all I need. The system is ready for me to finish, and I can click finish. Now, it's going to take a moment for this to complete that process. John Morgan on the other end, I'm going to refresh my screen here. It looks like it hasn't even come through yet. John Morgan, there it is receiving this. Now, because of that nice little delay, I can click, and I'm going to show you John's screen here. So I'll switch to show you guys. Here is, I'll switch over here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch to shift. Okay. So what you're seeing here is I have a fake email client, John Morgan, so I can do these. You can see I've done this a few thousand times. So here is John Morgan's email that he received, and it says, please review this document. So we're going to look at it. We're going to preview this document. It's going to open back up in Chrome. Okay. So here is John Morgan now. I'm not Robert anymore. I'm John. So I click on agree and I click continue, just like John would see it. And because I sent my signature to myself quickly first, I see, as John Morgan, I see that Robert has already signed this. So now I look at that and I'm like, okay, I can click the sign button. But what if John decides not to sign this? Well, he could click finish, but it's basically going to be like, you can't do that. But there's another action here. On the other action, and if your client calls you and says, I saw that document and I've decided not to sign it, how do I decline to sign it? Tell them to open it up as if they were going to sign it and click other actions, and there's a decline to sign. This way, it's recording that they've declined to sign it rather than just a document that went out and never got signed. Okay. So I'm not going to do the decline to sign. I'm going to do the signature, and I will click sign. So it says, do you want to adopt this as your signature? Maybe I'll change the style and say, there we go. I like that one a little better. Adopt and sign. So now that's all that's required. Now, for you as the agent, I'm going to give you a little bonus tip here. When you click finish, Your client is going to see this screen. I hate this screen. This screen implies that they need to fill this information out to finish signing the document. They do not. The simple solution is to tell them to click no thanks on this screen, and it will not ask for their information. Additionally, let them know that they can download that document right now to their desktop without having to go to their email and get a confirmation and download it from email. They can also print it directly from this screen to their printer if they wish to. This exists only for Docusign to create an account for them. Now, while that's all fine and dandy, some people may not need a Docusign account. But here's the thing. While this little box is sitting on the screen, Docusign is waiting. That document is not complete until they either hit submit with their information or they click no thanks. So this thing is in limbo. If they don't do anything here and they close this screen, the system is like, did they finish? Okay. So tell them to click no thanks. You don't need a signature process. And when they get that, that's when you know that Docusign is going to get that back. And I'll tell you what, I'll go back a screen here. And you see now that in my envelopes area for this transaction, this document is complete. Okay. So that's the signing process. And now the last step is to get that document. And in this case, we're doing one, is to get that single document, this one with the green icon showing that it is a signed document. We don't want the blue original one. Actually, it's over, where is it? Here. We don't want this one because actually you can't bring these blue forms into Command. It doesn't even see them. The only thing Command sees is signed documents and certifications. So
why doesn't it eliminate the one that's already been signed, so you only see it once?
You only see one that's been signed.
Well, no, I mean, it says another one down below, the same thing in blue.
Okay, that's a great question. The one in blue is a form, not a signed document. For example, if you had...
Yeah, but I'm saying if it's already been signed, that should be eliminated. That should go away. You don't need to do it anymore.
I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think here's why. These are two distinctly different objects. One is a car and one is a house. So
why are they different? It's the same thing. Isn't it the same form, Rob?
Nope.
I'm sorry.
Nope. This object here is a form inside of Docusign that is a fillable, templatized object. It doesn't contain the signature. So if I click on the blue one now, even though it's a signed document, there's no signatures to ever appear on these, no matter what. Because this is just... I
agree with you 100%. All I'm saying is, if it's the same document that's just been signed, why doesn't this go away so there's no confusion?
Because they're not the same. And that's my simple answer, because they're literally two different objects. This is pre and this is post.
So if post is done, pre still shows up.
Yep. And that's a function of here's the reason why. If I had a property disclosure, okay, how ticked off would you be if I sent out the property disclosure and it came back signed, but there was a mistake and I needed to reopen the property disclosure form to make an edit, but the system took it out already? Then I'd have to refill all that stuff on that property disclosure again because it would no longer have that information. Whereas
so you can't edit a signed property disclosure form?
You cannot edit the green ones.
What
you can
about
only
disclosure. No, not that one either. If it's signed.
Yes, you can edit the blue one. The blue one
you can't edit it because they signed it as it was.
They signed it as it was, and it came back green.
If you change the information, they have to re-sign it.
Exactly. So I can send this out 5 times until I get it right. Whereas this one, once it comes back, that's it. No changes because it's signed and locked and sealed. This one
Yeah.
is the form that I can make changes and go, oh, I forgot to dot my I and cross my T. Let me send you another one. This is the one that you would end up removing later on if it's bad. But this one is always the next good version, so to speak.
That's the original. So, okay.
Yep. Okay. So now that we have our green document ready to go back to command, all we need to do is quite literally go into command. And there's a step that's been added here. I'm not happy about this, but there is one step that's added. And that is in this same document area, we know that we have a signed copy of the brokerage relationship form. We know that it's in Docusign because it's a Docusign room, but we can't click this select button on the right. We can't seem to get that thing to drop down. That's because for some reason, they've added this second drop down here to tell you where in Docusign those forms are. And the reality is there's only one place, and it's the only folder that's in this room by default is called Room Docs. So all of your docs are in here, forms, signature versions, PDFs, whatever. So they're all in there. So that means that we need to tell command the stupidest statement in the world, look in the only folder that's there to find the documents.
Right.
So now that I do that, it says, okay, I got it. Let's look. So the brokerage relationship form is in the room docs under there. So I come down here and for some reason it's not showing up.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Oh, I know why. I'm an idiot. Because I didn't refresh this page. My bad. So I'll refresh the documents page because I left it and went straight to Docusign. And usually this doesn't happen in the same time period. But now that we've done that, here's the brokerage relationship form. And I refresh the page. And now look at this. Certification for the brokerage relationship form. We don't want that. NHAR brokerage relationship disclosure form signed. We want that. So I'll click that and it loads it in from Docusign into command. And I can verify it's the right one by clicking on the name. It opens up a window with a preview that shows me both signatures, the dates, everything that I need. So now I'm ready to send that to submission, to get submitted to the MC. Now, we didn't get to the commissions tab yet. So if you guys are okay, I'm going to go a few minutes over the 2 o'clock line because I told you that we were going to get it all the way to the commissions tab. So,
All right, can I ask you a quick question on submit to MC each time you upload something?
their rule is very simple. When you have completed the documents in the listing folder, hit the submit button. When you have completed the documents in the under contract folder, hit the submit button. You can also hit the submit button even if you haven't put all the documents together, but you're just a little bit iffy on something and you're like, you know what? I need to get these guys to look at this to make sure that I'm on the right track. That's fine.
Okay.
They would rather have more than less.
Okay, and let me, one real quick, I know you're trying to move forward, but as far as, like in my case, I have to add an addendum. I go through the same process?
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly the same process. And in your case, we talked about adding a different version to get a new slot, a new section for it.
okay.
All right. So now this is the final step. Offers and commissions. It's combined into one statement, offers and commissions. When we click on offers and commissions, we will only be doing this if all of the documentation has been approved. I'm saying that lightly, and I'll tell you why. Because you may end up over here before all of the stuff is actually done, but you're so close that you might as well start here. So you do not have any roadblocks during the documentation process that prevent you from going forward to the commissions tab. And the proof is I've only got one document in here, that brokerage relationship form. I clearly don't have all my documents in or approved, but I can still click on the offers and commissions tab. Okay. So
Can you submit that to the MC for their review?
Yeah, I could.
And will they acknowledge it, whether it's up or down?
Yes, you'll receive status notifications on the left-hand side, and you'll receive in each folder notifications of approved, rejected, or something else was required. So they will tell you, and your notification bell will light up, and you're going to get an email.
Okay. I got to run, Rob, but I appreciate it. Thank you
You
so
got
much
it.
for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
So on the offers and commissions tab, what we end up with is we have to create an offer. We can't get out of it. We have to create an offer in order to move forward. So creating an offer is by clicking the add new offer. Now, to be frank with you, most of the time when you're getting this point in the transaction, you're not doing offers. You need to get to the commissions tab because the offers, your paperwork's already done. You've already got the offer. It's been accepted. You guys are closing. You want to get a commission check. The tool for offers is for those people who want to use offers as a selling point, as a value add as an agent. Most of you are doing your own offers in your own ways, whether they be verbal or something else. So we do need to do this to get to the commissions tab, but you don't need to use it. All right.
Okay.
So I'll click create offer, and all I'm going to do for you really quickly is move through it because not only in the interest of time, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So the offer details are here. We'll click on parties to see who's involved. So we have a buyer and we have a seller. Okay. Actually, I'm going to change the buyer to Bill Buyer. Okay. And I'll leave that Bill Buyer as the name. It is required. The seller's required. All that stuff is in there. So we can, if we wanted to use all these cool tools, we could do this. We could put in all this neat stuff. But we need to get through to the main area. So we'll go terms. The terms are that there's $30,000 in cash. The finance amount is $420 for a total of $450. The earnest amount was, let's say it's going to be $2,000. It's a little much. So I'm just, again, putting stuff in here. Don't need the rest of it. Agent analysis, pros and cons. This is for you to help your listing person determine what's best. Go through it. Accept the offer if this is the one that you needed. Otherwise, you can reject it. You can negotiate, add new offers. But generally speaking, you're trying to get to the commissions tab. So we'll accept the offer. Because once you accept the offer, you get the manage commission button. And that's the only way you get the button is by accepting the offer. So manage commission. I mentioned very early on that one of the things that happens is we need a contract date in the commissions tab in order for it to be able to submit for our money. Mm-hmm. If we didn't put that contract date or the close date into the system, this would have a yellow triangle and there would be a notification down here, error, contract date, close date are required. And it's self-explanatory, but it's something where you will need to add that in. So you're going to have to go back and look at the date of the contract that you had with the buyer of the property you're selling and put that in there, which is why I recommend adding it when you have it so that you don't have to dig it up when you're trying to get commissions. Okay. On the commissions tab, you can add payments to another agent. By default, you will be in here for a total of 100% of this deal. If you add other agents, you will need to modify the percentage manually accordingly. So for example, if I add another agent and I add in Wednesday, let's see if we find you. There you are. And if I say that I'm going to give you half the deal, okay? And that half the deal is $9,000. Half the deal for $9,000. Okay. And I'll save changes. It adds you down here at half the deal for your $9,000, but it does not change mine from 100% of the deal at $18,000. I have to edit my payment to show the half and calculate it to the $9,000 to make this work so that compliance writes the right checks. Okay.
Gotcha.
So make sure that if you're adding another agent, that you correct the agent units on both of the agents to reflect a total of 100% or 1.0.
Okay.
All right. You can also add, if you have a referral, you can add a referral in under the agent payment settings. All the way down at the bottom, you have a section for referrals. So you can add referrals, whether they be internal or external. If it's internal, you're going to see an option to search for an agent name. So if I type in here a search name, you'll see a KW agent name. If it's an external referral, it's not going to have that because it's going to need a tax ID number and it's going to need people's names because they're writing a check to somebody else.
Okay.
All right. So you can add in internal, external referrals. You can also add co-broker payments for payments to agents outside the company. And those are calculated manually here. And again, you will need the tax ID and you will need that information. All right.
Okay.
So all of that done, you can submit for payment from the Market Center, verify all the numbers are right to your liking, and hit submit. If there's a problem with this, they're going to reject it or send it back to you with questions or concerns. Generally speaking, you would want to talk to Tristan, Jason, or Colin if there was issues with the payment of your commission. But you can see that the commission tab is fairly simple. Some dates and numbers, the breakdown of who gets paid, and then you hit the button.
Okay. Yeah, it is very
Okay.
simple.
All right.
Yeah, great stuff.
Okay, so there it is. Contact all the way through commissions.
Okay.
That's some good stuff there
Got it.
for you.
Thank you very much, Robert.
You are very welcome. We'll see the rest of you back here at 3 o'clock for Command 301, where we talk about importing contacts. But until then, thank you very much for joining Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. For those of you who are still watching on the YouTube channel, you can always email me at command@kwclm.com. Our YouTube channel, of course, you're probably already there if you're watching me there, is kwtechtube.com. And you can book time on my calendar at timewithrobert.com. The Tech Lab is open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2 to 3. And that is at kwtechtv.com. And today we're working off the facebook.com/mctt463 feed. That one's working. For some reason, the other one is not. But we'll see if we can get that squared away. And finally, the new learning management system, kwclmtraining.com. You can jump in there anytime and check it out. All right. So that takes care of that for